Okay, so have you ever heard that saying, the rich don't own anything? It's a bit of a head scratcher, right?
Yes.
Well, we're diving into that today, unpacking some unconventional wealth strategies. We're checking out this article by MD White. He's an entrepreneur and investor, been in the game over 25 years, so he's seen a thing or two.
Right.
And the article really grabbed our attention, especially the part about how the wealthy, they often own next to nothing.
Mm.
Sounds crazy, right?
It does on the surface, definitely.
Yeah, but he gets this example about a friend of his who drives a luxury car, totally decked out, top of the line. But here's the kicker. The car, it's not actually his. It's owned by his company.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Yeah, so how does that even work, and what's the strategy there?
So it all comes down to how the wealthy use legal entities. Trusts, corporations, these structures, they can hold assets.
So instead of owning it personally, it's like,
It's like a separate container for your valuables, offering, legal and financial protection.
so it's not about owning nothing. It's more like,
Owning it differently.
okay, I think I'm starting to get it. But for those of us who aren't, let's say, millionaires, what's the advantage?
Well, the big thing is protection. Right.
Protection.
Asset protection.
Okay.
Let's say you're a doctor and boom, you get hit with a lawsuit.
Happens.
If your assets are held within a trust, they're protected.
Even if you lose the lawsuit.
Exactly. It shields your personal wealth.
So it's like a safety net.
It's like a firewall. You're insulating yourself.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the tax implications of all this?
Oh, now that's where it gets really interesting. There are definitely tax advantages, strategies to significantly reduce your tax burden.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, consider the S-Corp, for instance. It lets you pass business income through to your personal taxes,
And that means.
potentially way lower taxes overall.
So we're talking about working within the system, but
Strategically.
right, like
Yeah.
using the tools that are already there to your advantage.
Exactly. It's not about loopholes or anything shady.
It's about being smart.
Being smart, being proactive, taking control.
I like it. So this isn't just for the super rich then.
Not at all. These are strategies anyone can use.
So why aren't we all doing this?
Well, there are some things to consider.
So it sounds pretty appealing, but
Eh.
I have to be honest. Setting up a trust or an LLC or whatever, it all seems kind of intimidating.
Sure, I get it.
Like, is this really something anyone can do?
Oh, absolutely. It's way easier than it used to be, that's for sure.
Right.
You used to need lawyers, tons of paperwork. It was a whole thing.
Right.
But these days, you've got online platforms, templates, you name it. It's much more user-friendly.
So less like climbing Mount Everest, more like a nice hike.
Exactly. And you can always find professionals to guide you if you need help.
That's good to know. It seems like with all this, information is key, right?
100%. The more you know, the better decisions you can make.
For sure. And speaking of which, you mentioned tax advantages before. Can you give me a real-world example? How much are we actually talking here?
Okay, so let's say you're a freelancer, right?
Okay.
And you've got that home office set up.
Yep. Got the ergonomic chair and everything.
Nice. So if you're structured as an LLC, you can write off part of your rent, utilities, even your internet.
Wait, really?
Yeah, because they're considered business expenses. If you were just an individual taxpayer, you'd be missing out on those deductions.
Oh, that's huge. So it's all above board, but you're just,
Maximizing what's available, playing smart.
I like it. It's not about cheating the system.
Not at all. These are the rules.
It's about understanding the rules better
Better than the average person, yeah.
and then using that knowledge to your advantage.
Exactly. And honestly, the wealthy, they've been doing this for years.
That's what's so interesting about all this. It's like we always hear, oh, the rich are different.
Right? They've got secrets.
But it's not really about secrets, is it?
It's more about knowledge, strategy, things anyone can learn.
Exactly. And that kind of brings us to a big question. So if it's this accessible, why aren't more people doing this? What am I missing?
It's a good question. And, MD White, he actually addresses that.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he's not just peddling some, get-rich-quick fantasy. He's realistic.
So what's the catch? There's got to be a downside.
Well, it's not exactly a walk in the park to set all this stuff up.
Oh, okay.
It's not like opening a savings account, Trusts, LLCs, they require some work.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Paperwork and all that.
Exactly. Paperwork, decisions.
Yeah.
You might even want a professional to help, at least at first. Lawyers, accountants.
So it costs money on top of everything else,
Right. There are costs to consider. And for some people, maybe those costs outweigh the benefits.
especially when you're just starting out, probably.
Exactly. It all depends on your situation, your goals.
Yeah,
how complicated your finances are. One size doesn't fit all.
that's fair. No magic bullet, unfortunately.
Nope. But even just knowing about these strategies, that's huge.
Yeah, it's like having more tools in your toolbox.
Exactly. You might not use them all right away, but they're there when you need them.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so to wrap things up here, it seems like the big takeaway is it's not about the rich and everyone else.
Right.
It's about understanding the system and making it work for you.
That's what MD White is really getting at, yeah. It's about strategy, being proactive.
And not being afraid to learn something new.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. We've gone from, wait, the rich don't own anything, to how can I use this?
That's the goal.
And that's what we're all about, taking these complex topics and making them,
Digestible.
yes, and hopefully getting people excited to learn more on their own.
Absolutely.
So to our listeners, if you're intrigued by all this talk of trusts, LLCs, don't just take our word for it. Do your research. Talk to an expert. See what makes sense for you.
Couldn't agree more.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. But before you go, here's one last thought. If these wealth strategies are so effective, why don't we hear more about them? Something to ponder. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.